Chair recognizes Professor Blakey.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The next witness to be called this afternoon is J. Lee Rankin. Mr. Rankin served as General Counsel to the Warren Commission. It would be appropriate at this time, Mr. Chairman, to call Mr. Rankin.
Committee calls Mr. Rankin.
Were there any pressures exerted not to find the foreign conspiracy because of the dire consequences that such a conspiracy might have for world peace?
None at all. There was a conscientious effort throughout to try to discover anything that would reveal that there was conspiratorial action about the assassination of the president.
Counselor, Mr. Rankin, has the fact that the Warren Commission report, according to all polls, received such poor acceptance by the American people, given you any pause to reflect on whether you went about it correctly or not?
Not really. You know, as a part of my job as General Counsel, I researched all of the assassinations and a number in regard to other countries, and went into the materials that were available about the assassination of President Lincoln, and I discovered that there was a large body of opinion that didn't believe any of the findings about Lincoln's assassination, about other people that had been assassinated, and that apparently is a lot of anybody that works in this kind of a field.
Did you make any effort, either as a staff or to your knowledge as a commission, to determine just where Oswald was going at the time he was intercepted by Officer Tippit?
We speculated on it, but speculations weren't worth much.
Well, did you come to any reasonable hypothesis as to where he was going?
We all agreed that he was on his way to try to escape, but where, we didn't know. And everything from that point on was just one person's guess against another's.
Of course, I presume you're aware that the direction in which he was heading at the time that he was confronted by Tippit kind of led to nowhere with respect to either escape routes or anything, just out in the neighborhood.
Well, we didn't think that was really the complete answer, because at that point he was very hard pressed, and we thought he was more in the posture of just running.
Well, did you find out that Jack Ruby's apartment was about 2 or 3 blocks up the street on the direct route he was going?
Yes.
Did you also find out that in the Dallas newspaper announcement of the president's visit, that on the same page was the identity of an informant who had substantially destroyed the Communist Party in Texas by informing to the FBI, and he was identified, and he lived just about 2 blocks up the street on the direct route he was going also?
I don't recall that I was aware of that.
But other than just the fact that on this some 14.5 or 15-minute walk he had taken through neighborhoods after leaving his rooming house, other than just running or escaping, you had formed no hypothesis at all on where he may have been going or what his intent may have been?
That is true, we did not.
Now, with respect, as you are undoubtedly aware, much of the criticism of the Warren Commission report and much of the bases of the various critics who have written extensively on the subject has been centered about, for one thing, and principally, the single bullet theory, and the fact that if that weren't valid, time did not permit of one assassin. You made a decision, or you and the commission, not to allow access to the autopsy information. Are you still satisfied with that decision as being a sound one?
Yes, I am. I think it's been revealed the basis of the decision, and that the Kennedy family did not wish to have the pictures of the president as shown by the X-rays and the other pictures after the assassination attempt as the way that the American people in the world would remember the dead president. And we thought we had good evidence from the doctors who were involved at the hospital in Dallas and also at the autopsy. And we did not want the president's memory to be presented in that manner. And we'd already promised the American people that the commission had that everything that they obtained, except for such matters that involve national security, would be made available to them. So we would have to publish if we made it available. So in light of that, I think the choice that was made was correct, and I don't think it's done any harm. And I still would hate to have published throughout the world those pictures as a remembrance of our president.
Well, on the other hand, Mr. Rankin, this committee staff and the committee made all of that original material available to a panel of pathologists. But we did not feel any necessity to make the pictures themselves public to the extent they were relevant. We had drawings made from the original and produced them, and were able, I feel, to have totally laid at rest the one bullet theory because of the ability to determine the points of entry of wounds and exits, and to be able to project back from those wounds to locations from which firings occurred. And I don't think we were in any way compelled to or did do anything either distasteful or shocking at all as far as our public exhibitions of the situation were concerned. Now,
as far as I know, you haven't promised the American people that you would give them everything that you received. Maybe you have, I'm not aware of it. But we had, the commission had, and they would not have been willing to cover up anything or withhold anything after such a promise.
well, do you feel then that you may have made an error in promising to make all original material available, or do you feel you may have made an error in not making the material available to pathologists?
No, I don't think either one of them. I think that if we hadn't promised the people and done what we did about giving them everything that the commission examined that was not involved in national security, the commission's work would have had little credence with the people. And I think that once having done that, the commission couldn't say, well, we did everything but this, and this, and this, and that we aren't going to give you.
Well, in other words, then, as I understand you, because you'd made this commitment and then didn't feel like this was material you wanted to make public for taste reasons or feeling reasons, you just didn't even look at it then.
No,
you let this promise govern your investigation?
There was another factor, that this was merely additional evidence, cumulative. The evidence of the doctors was equally good as far as the law goes, and was of first quality, so that it wasn't as though we were without evidence.
No, but based on the testimony of those doctors and the evidence developed, they were, for example, like 4 inches off on the point of entry of the head wound, which, of course, projected would be a horrendous error.
I don't know that. I've heard that your staff has discovered that, and that Dr. Humes has admitted that he was that much off. At the time, it was, and since, until I heard that, it was difficult to imagine that a man conducting an autopsy could make that kind of mistakes when he was observing the body that he was examining and so forth.
Well, now that you've heard that, are you still satisfied with the decision not to even allow access to the X-rays and autopsy original data?
I think I would not do that if you combine with that the obligation to publish it, because I think that is the importance of President Kennedy to the people of this country and to the world as an American public leader is, I think, very valuable, even today.
Well, would you have taken that position vis-a-vis any relevant information that if you decided that either because of embarrassment or damage it might do to the FBI or the CIA or international relations or whatever, that because of this self-imposed obligation to publish in general, you just then followed the proposition of not even looking at it?
No, and I think our work shows that we didn't.
But as you probably know now, that information was withheld by the FBI with respect to the so-called Hsca note from Oswald threatening to burn down a police station, or allegedly so.
Yes, but Congressman, if you look back at that period, we, all of us, didn't believe the FBI was capable of that kind of conduct. At least I didn't, and none of the commissioners did. And I think that all of our ideas about what people in government are capable of and do has changed. But back then, we didn't think they would do such things.
Did you receive any advice from the FBI about the 17 agents that were subjected to administrative discipline because of their mishandling of the pre-assassination information about Ruby?
No, I didn't.
Not Ruby, Oswald?
Yes. And I think that's very shocking, too. I think we were entitled to that information and a frank disclosure by Mr. Hoover that he felt that they should be disciplined and why, and that we should have been able to go into that and try to discover if it had any effect on our work.
And I assume you feel the same way about the CIA's non-disclosure of the alleged assassination plots that they may have participated in vis-a-vis Castro?
I do.
Are you satisfied with the decision to hold all in executive session hearings rather than public hearings?
Well,
do you think that may have contributed to the lack of acceptance of the report?
We had one open hearing.
That was because Mark Lane demanded
that was right. Mark Lane, and I think you had similar experiences.
Who would naturally demand a public hearing, right?
And I didn't think it helped with your hearing, although I think you handled it well in regard to some of the problems that developed.
As some people that watched it said that Mr. Lane had done for the legal profession what the Boston Strangler did for the door-to-door salesman. Another thing that I was interested in is that in the conference or interview or interrogation, whichever, that President Ford and the Chief Justice and some staff members had with Mr. Ruby while he was incarcerated in Dallas, he said, according to the transcript, substantially, that he'd like to tell the whole truth, but he can't tell them the whole truth while he's in Dallas, and if they would transport him to Washington, he would tell the whole truth. Was any follow-up ever done of that at all by the staff or otherwise?
No, there wasn't. We were all convinced that Ruby was interested in a trip to Washington rather than how much he could enlighten the commission. And it seemed quite apparent when you observed him and his approach to the whole suggestion.
Were you there at the time?
Yes.
And is that the impression you got individually, too?
Yes. Yes, I thought that he was quite enamored with the idea of coming to Washington, and he even wanted to see the president. And it was easy to imagine what that would all develop into if you got started in it.
Mr. Rankin, it appears to me that there are two things that the commission was looking for and could find neither. One was a motive for Lee Harvey Oswald to commit the crime, and the second was the question of whether there was or was not a conspiracy. Would that be true? The commission was trying to ascertain the facts relative to those two things.
Well, it's true they were. I felt they did find an answer to the first one that you described, that they felt that there was no motive beyond Oswald's own ambition for notoriety and position and so forth that was gone into at some length in the report.
Well, let me ask you this. Would whatever his activities were in Soviet Russia, do you think that it's possible that that could have provided some insight into motivation by way of background?
I don't think so beyond what we presented. Now, I'm quite aware, as I think the report shows, that we only said that we were unable to discover any such information about conspiracy or conspiratorial activity. What else he might have done that we never could get any information about through our efforts through the State Department or CIA or anyone else is just a matter of speculation.
Well, it would seem that in that area, that's where Yuri Nusenko would have been very important to the commission in terms of what he was able to tell the CIA about Oswald while he's in Soviet Russia, would it not?
Well, if they got anything from him, when they reported to us, they didn't report that they got any word about his associations with Oswald or knowledge about Oswald or anything like that.
Do I understand from what you're saying that, I think we're talking about the CIA, are we not?
Yes.
All right. Tell us what they did tell you.
My recollection,
that Nusenko told them about Oswald in Russia.
They were satisfied he was not a KGB officer. They felt that he was a plant, that he was sent in for some purpose that they didn't know to try to participate. They said they felt he wasn't believable about anything that he would claim about Oswald or knowledge about him.
And that he was not himself a bona fide defector then, I suppose.
Yeah, that's correct. That's what they said.
Did anyone ever tell you that Nusenko had said that while he was in Soviet Russia, that 2 suitcases full of documents on Oswald were flown up from Minsk to the Russian capital immediately after the assassination? Did they ever tell you that?
I don't remember anything like that.
Probabilities are that if you were told something like that, you would have recalled it.
Yes, it's quite impressive.
Correct.
You'd want to see what was in those suitcases if you'd heard it, I'm sure.
That is correct. And that is part of the information Nusenko has given this committee. Okay. I have no further questions. Gentleman from North Carolina, Mr. Pryor.
Just a couple of questions, Mr. Chairman, relating to the problems that might have been created by using the FBI as your major investigative arm. Early on in the work of the commission, I believe it did come to your attention, allegations came to your attention that Lee Harvey Oswald might have been an FBI agent. Is that right?
That's correct.
How were you able to investigate the truth or falsity of that charge? What did you do to investigate?
Well, when that information came to my attention and then to the commission's, we were very much shocked about it. And the commission had deliberations in which they tried to determine what was the best approach to try to find out the fact. And they decided that we should make direct inquiries to J. Edgar Hoover. The problem was not, as I recall it, whether Oswald was ever listed as an agent in their records, because, as I recall, we checked that out, and he was not. But my recollection is that this involved the question of whether he might have been a numbered personality that the FBI had, where the name of the individual is not revealed, and he thus has a cover, and it could be concealed. And we examined the possibility that we could try to go into their records and examine every person, identify every person who had a number, and we were assured that that involved a large number of personalities, and that the FBI was greatly disturbed about taking the cover off of all those agents that they had established over a long term of years, and revealing their names to all of the staff as well as the commissioners, which I couldn't assure them would not happen in that kind of a process. So the commission finally determined that they would accept J. Edgar Hoover's personal assurance by affidavit that Oswald had never been an informer or agent of the FBI, and that was given.
Well, you were somewhat in the position of asking the FBI to investigate itself, or to go into the innkeeper to ask whether the wine was good or not. Let me ask one other question.
At that time, Congressman, that didn't seem so impossible as it might today.
Yes, I think your answer to an earlier question has demonstrated a certain fall from innocence that we've all had since that time. Things are now believable which we would not have thought believable at that time.
That's correct.
Threshold of disbelief has gone up quite a bit. Let me ask you one other thing. The FBI reached a conclusion in their report that was made 17 days after the assassination that Lee Harvey Oswald was the lone assassin. Don't you think that would have had some chilling effect, would have dampened the incentive of FBI agents in following out the question of a conspiracy where his organization had already declared itself to the effect that there was no conspiracy?
I think that's true, but we always assumed that. We started out knowing the FBI had already decided who the assassin was, and that no one else was involved, and we knew that was the agency position. It was very evident. But we didn't rely on anything like that. We sought detailed evidence. And if we didn't get the evidence we asked for, we sent them back time after time to get it. And we treated their report, in which they promptly found Oswald as the assassin and there was no conspiracy, as though that's just an interesting document, but we're not here for that, to ratify that. We're to find out if it's true. And I think we were probably quite offensive, especially some of the younger members of our staff who looked forward to the opportunity of finding the FBI was wrong, at least on as much as they could find. So that oftentimes they were challenging, and I had difficulty with some of our relationships because of that. I don't think it affected our people at all, but of course I recognize that it would have been lèse-majesty for anybody to tell that to Mr. Hoover. The report was wrong.
Just one final question on the problems that could arise where you use the FBI as your major investigative arm. You told Mr. Sawyer, I believe, that you did not know about the destruction of the Hsca note. Do you think if you had had independent investigators rather than relying on the FBI that you might have learned about the destruction of that note?
Well, there's always the possibility that we might. There seems to me there could have been possibility that it might have leaked out some way from the FBI, but it didn't. And I think that it would have been helpful to know that, although I don't suppose we would have changed about using the FBI and the other government intelligence forces.
Thank you, Mr. Rankin.
Well, it just seems to me that someone, somewhere, who had a modicum of experience with firearms would have discovered right off, even if you go down to the archives today and look at the rifle, it's no particularly difficult problem to pick it up and look at it and see that it can be fired without the telescopic sight. And anybody who's ever fired with a scope would know that you can fire a lot faster if you're looking for a moving target. You don't have to find it in the scope. And if it can, in fact, be fired faster. Now, for 15 years, we've been told it couldn't be fired faster. We now know that is not true. And it seems to me that someone on the commission, having some evidence which appears to me not to be able to fit into the 2.25, which is the minimum time of the FBI, might have requested another kind of test firing. And I'm curious that it did not occur to a single person, either on the commission, on your staff, in the FBI, or anywhere else along the line. I guess my final question is, was there no consideration given by the commission, or as far as you know by the FBI, to another kind of test firing of that weapon?
Not that I know of. Of course, there are also problems of the leaves on the trees and how you fit them in, and the point where the Zapruder film showed the impact had to be, that is, that it had to be within certain spaces. All of that had to be fitted in too. So you're not just free to say, well, I can shoot this weapon so many times within so many minutes. There are many other problems that you have to deal with and fit within.